What's going on, everybody? It's Chuck, and you're watching the ITXP episode 7, somewhere around there. At this point, let's stop counting and let's just go right into the meat of it. Been very, very busy since the hackathon. Oh, you were in a hackathon? Yeah, I actually competed in my first hackathon back in June of 2024, so last month. I can't believe it's been a month already. That took up a lot of my time, more so than expected. And I have to say, it was a really great experience. It was an experience that I've never done before, never created a product in a corporate setting. Really helped me learn in terms of what the business actually does and how they create products and the mindset of these product managers and when they're looking for new product ideas. So if you ever have an opportunity to join a hackathon within your organization, and I think I get a sense that probably larger organizations do these hackathons, go ahead and step out of your comfort zone. Go ahead and either join a team, come up with an idea, pitch your idea, or submit your idea during the ideation phase, and have fun. The biggest theme of the hackathon overall was just have fun. This is your opportunity to be creative. This is your opportunity to learn something new, to break out of your comfort zone, as I stated earlier. I came up with an idea back in March when the hackathon was first announced. And actually during the process of me volunteering at a hackathon, there was a smaller hackathon going on. This was the global hackathon. I leveraged generative AI because they wanted you to leverage generative AI to as part of your hackathon idea. But I leveraged generative AI to really flesh out my idea and fine-tune it so that when I posted it on the hackathon platform during the ideation phase, I was able to attract team members because outside of IT, not outside, inside of IT, nobody was really kind of keen on how they would be able to participate or help. But as soon as I posted my idea, I had a lot of hits. The first person to reach out to me was someone that was a climate scientist, and we just kind of hit it off, and we were at the races, ready to go. The idea was around leveraging augmented reality and generative AI to present data in a new way, leveraging the Apple headset. What was that? AR headset, Apple Vision, the Apple Vision Pro. Unfortunately, I didn't have an Apple Vision Pro to test to play around with. What I did wind up doing was I built my first app, AR app, on my Android phone, my Samsung. So it was really, really cool. It was the first time that I actually built an app for a mobile device. I never built an app before, but I leveraged AI to help me with it. So I think you get the main point here. Break out of your comfort zone. And I think breaking out of your comfort zone will help you probably either motivate yourself or realize that, hey, you don't have to be stuck in this doldrum of, help desk, sysadmin, whatever you're in, cybersecurity, right? There's just break out of your comfort zone and start doing things. Since that hackathon, and by the way, we placed second overall in North America, which I think was a testament to, first of all, the work that we put in. Secondly, the group that we were able to put together, and it wasn't like we were recruiting people. It was more like people really were attracted to our idea, which was key. And I say our idea, even though it was my initial idea. When I had this gentleman join me who was a climate scientist, he helped me flush out the idea a little bit more cohesively, so that way it was, what was the term they used? So we were able to commercialize it, right? So actually create a product out of it. So that was pretty cool. So we attracted him as a climate scientist, a woman that actually works in our organization that deals with climate data, right? And I'm trying not to divulge too much because I don't want you all to figure out what company I work for, but it's not that difficult. And then a woman that I've actually met when I first started the company. We were part of a general, I keep wanting to say generalization. It's not generational resource group. So large organizations have these resource groups where you kind of take ideas from different there's the various resource groups, right? But this was a generational resource group, and where we were thrown into a room with different generations and talking about our challenges, blah, blah, blah. But I met her there, 6-7 years ago at this point. Occasionally chatted with her, but this was the first time we actually worked together. So she was a project manager, and then a young woman who was with the company, I think 2 years, who was the back-end data person. So we had a well-rounded team. She was the back end, I was the front end, even though I've never done front end work. I built the mobile app. But coming in second, I think it was really, really good in terms of showcasing how we were able to come together as a team from different aspects of the business and present a product idea that was compelling enough to beat out some really, really good products that actually probably could have been more commercialized faster than ours. I think one of the biggest challenges that I faced during the pitch phase was the question was asked, how do we commercialize this? And I had all these ideas on how to commercialize it, but I got stuck on the tech. And that was my mistake, right? Again, I'm a techie guy, and having my MBA, I think I froze, right? It's because it's like overwhelming experience. You have judges that are product managers across the business, right? Not just there's 3 entities in the business, and they're just across the business, and they're just looking at you. They're smiling, right, and kind of encouraging you to talk. And I just got stuck on the tech because 2 of the people that were on as judges I've worked with, right? And I know they're very technical, so I got stuck on the tech and not how we actually commercialize the product. I'm like, afterwards, I'm like, oh man, I could have done so much better. But lessons learned, right? And these are the things that you should try to do to break out of your comfort zone, because then you kind of get bored and things like that. But that's what I've been doing for the past few months, just really focusing on that. And the past month has been a whirlwind of activity within my normal job, just dealing with Google and expanding our Google footprint. I've been tagged as the Google person, just because out of necessity at this point, as we're venturing out into truly multi-cloud, obviously we have our AWS SMEs. Obviously I'm one of them. Then we have our Azure SME. There's one gentleman who's stepped up into that role. So I'm letting him do that, one of my guys. And then I was a de facto Google SME. Not that I wanted to, but I kind of have to stay relevant in the business, right? As much as I don't want to be hands-on, you have to, because there's a necessity to do that. So things have been really, really busy for me over the course of the past few months. But getting back to building the relationships within your organization, right? It's not just building relationships internally, but it's also how you manage the vendors. Even if you're not in a position to influence, I'm not going to say a position to influence, because I think everybody has the ability to influence within the organization, whether you're a help desk, whether you're, whatever, you should have the ability to influence within your organization. If you're not able to do so, learn how to build that skill, because it is a skill. But what I mean is build relationships with your vendors that you work with. learn as much as you can. Ask questions. See if you can get workshops going. And that's what I've been doing, just building those relationships, meeting different folks within Google to learn about things, to set up workshops for our organization, larger scale workshops. We had one a few months ago around data monetization, and it wasn't even a sales pitch from Google. It was just, hey, this is how we dealt with our data journey. Pretty much, obviously it was in the context of Google, but they're just like, hey, this is what we did, right? This is how we did things. Obviously, yes, there are services that we leverage that are our own, but this is how we built it, and this is, how you can think about your own data journey. So things like that. Excuse me. But I think it's really key as you go through your career progression that you learn how to start building these relationships. I'm not a very extroverted person. I'm very introverted. I honestly don't like talking to people. I don't like talking to people face to face. It's very uncomfortable for me to go out to some partner events or vendor events and really talk to people. I gravitate more towards the sales folks that just love to talk. That's all they do is just talk. So I'm good, right? Just sitting there drinking my beverage or eating kind of the past hors d'oeuvres and just let the salespeople talk. Ask, kind of interject some questions or your own inputs and then just let them talk. So if you're introverted and you just find it challenging to speak at some of these things or network, gravitate towards the salespeople. They love to talk. They just love to hear themselves talk. So that's what I tend to do. Some of these conferences where it's mostly tech people, it's when I was at Google Next, it was really hard for me to and you'll find that at these tech conferences, there are a lot of introverted people there that don't like to talk either. So I remember I was at a lunch table and I tried to start some small talk with folks and they just couldn't do it. And I felt like I was a sales guy because I started talking, but learn these skills, right? These are all skills as part of your career development. But one thing I wanted to talk about Google, because it was really, really interesting in some of the things in the security space that are coming to fruition. And as we pivot into security, I'm going to talk about Crowdstrike today, right? July, was it 19th at this time? What time? When was I don't even know the dates. Yeah, July 19th, 2024. There was a big failure in the way Crowdstrike updates their software. We'll get into that some more. They released their preliminary incident review. We'll go through that. We'll talk through that. And then I'll kind of give my insights and experiences on what I went through. But first, I want to talk about my Google journey. Again, I continue trying to navigate the Google ecosystem and excuse me, and leveraging generative AI to help me. But I am continuing my progression through the professional cloud architect within Google. Don't know why my machine is beeping, but it is. And you'll see I'm about 5% through my path because there's real life stuff that's happening. But what I also realize is that, well, let me see what generative AI can do. And you've heard me say this time and time again. I leverage ChatGPT, I leverage Gemini, and I leverage Claude. ChatGPT is kind of going downhill for me at this point. I'm finding myself gravitating towards Claude, and I'm still debating. Gemini is still there. But I'm really gravitating towards Claude. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to see what generative AI can do as part of my journey to get certified as a professional cloud architect on the Google ecosystem. And what I learned was that Claude is a little bit more geared towards the theoretical aspect of Google Cloud Architect or professional cloud architect in Google. So let me zoom in a little bit here. Whoops. And I want to show you what I did. And if you use either LLM, whatever you use, this is how I approached it. So acting as a certified Google Cloud Platform Architect trainer, you will help me prepare to take and pass, that's key, the Google Professional Cloud Architect certifications. What questions do you have? So they ask questions, right? So I gave, I said I have 6 months experience with Google. I do. I built a few projects. I'm certified in AWS, which I am. Also have 3 years in Azure, which I do. So I said, I want to do 2 hours a day for 3 months. That was, you want to set your goals high, but that was really high. GKE is my weakest area. So Kubernetes, hands-on lab, but I'm open to other methods. My target date is October. I'd like to have a stronger bias towards practical application, but be still interested in theoretical applications, right? So they gave me a breakdown, focus areas, GKE, deepen, right? So weeks 1 through 12, practical applications, setting up the hands-on lab, which actually, if I'm thinking through it, it's better for the, I think it's the Associate Cloud Engineer certification, because it's more hands-on, more command line stuff. Right. But then, as we go through this, and I was thinking through this and going through some of this, I said, let's begin. All right, let's get started. So let's talk about GKE and things like that. Talk about how to create it using G-Cloud. And then I go, oh, I forgot. Do you know what domains are tested and the weights of each domain for the exam? And it said, yeah, there we go. And it goes through it. So I said, adjust accordingly. Right? So they adjusted it and it went right into it. So one thing that I realized with this, as it was explaining certain things, that you can go in there and dig deeper in some of these things, leverage external resources as it's providing it to you. But look at this. It gives you a practical exercise, right? Let's apply these principles to a real-world scenario. Imagine you're designing an e-commerce platform that needs to handle variable load, ensure high availability, and maintain strong security. How would you design this using gPC services, considering the following components? And this is actually something that differentiates itself from the other LLMs. You have to remember, the Professional Cloud Architect exam is an exam in where you're an architect. You should have enough experience on how you're designing solutions in the cloud space. So it's not really, what's the command to deploy GKE? Right? Yes, you should know that already, but it's, hey, here's a scenario, use case on how would you do this leveraging Google services for the real world. And it was cool. So, I said, how do I present that in here? Because I'm thinking, whiteboarding and things like that. And I'm like, nah, just do this. All right. And then the other one was, where's the other one here? So I dug deeper into some things that I didn't understand. The other one here was, so it went through, multi-cloud, machine learning, big data analytics, things like that. And then it went to, here it is. Compliance, security, right? So you're designing a cloud architecture for a healthcare provider that needs to store and process patient data. The solution must be HIPAA compliant. Well, Chuck, what's HIPAA? You can dig deeper, right? And protects against both internal and external threats. Consider the following requirements: secure storage, controlled access, encryption, audit logging. So what I'm getting at is, at least for Claude, because when I went to Gemini and did this, it just went right into the hands-on practical stuff. I didn't give it enough time to kind of do things. And I'm probably going to go back because, as you see here in Claude, it'll cap you, right? Whereas ChatGPT and Gemini, you can continue to chat as long as you need to. So I may have to go back into Gemini or ChatGPT and figure out how I can get it to present the information in this manner. But I think as you're preparing for whatever certification that you're preparing for, and you're looking for opportunities to learn or other resources to learn, leverage the generative AI tools available to you, and learn. If you look, it's already been almost 2 years now, well, a year and a half. I don't even, to see it seems like it's been forever. For some of you, it may not be, but understand how to use this. If you don't understand prompt engineering, I talked about it previously in a few episodes throughout the past 2 years. You should, at this point, if you haven't been following along, learn how to interact with the generative AI and start your training sessions, right? You don't have to purchase the subscriptions. Obviously, it'd be better if you do, because you'll get access to the more advanced models, which actually may help you. But again, this isn't your be all end all, right? So one thing that I was recognizing about this is, if you've heard me before in terms of some of the tools that I've used to help me with my AWS journey, I used Adrian Cantrell's platform, whatever you want to call it. And this is how he approaches it, right? Use case scenario planning or building on top of each skill. So in Adrian's platform for AWS, you're building I think it's a pet services company or something like that, right? And it starts off small and it grows over the course of time. So you have to grow with it. And I think it's really valuable in terms of how you actually learn real world scenarios, how real world scenarios play a part in your role as, a cloud ops, cloud engineer, cloud architect, right? For me, I started infrastructure. So, transitioning into cloud was a little bit of a learning curve, but I was able to adjust accordingly. So don't forget to leverage generative AI in this space to help you with your learning journey. Don't leverage it only for that, but figure out if you can leverage it. Again, if you have the funds, the means, $20 a month versus a couple hundred for some training. Yeah. To each their own. Everybody's scenario is different. Everybody's financial obligations are different. So you may not be able to do $20 a month. Do the free version, see how much it can get you, and go from there. But don't discount some of these things. Obviously, not all of this is going to be accurate. And that's where you get different access. Obviously, Cloud Skills Boost, but again, I added my developer account into this, so I get 35 credits a month. That's free as well. So just do that. One last thing before we get off into CrowdStrike is the news around Google wishing to buy Wiz Security, and Wiz is like, screw you, we're gonna go IPO. I found that amusing because, Google's kind of like the big 800-pound gorilla in the room, looking to acquire Wiz Security for $23 billion. Right? They're probably would have been their biggest acquisition to date. And Wiz Security is like, yeah, thanks, but we're good. So if you don't know, Wiz Security also purchased Gem Security, I think earlier this year. So all in the cloud security space. Really big news that Wiz is walking away. So it's something to keep an eye on. Really fast growing company. I met some of those folks over at Google Next. Obviously we're customers through Gem Security. But yeah. So that's kind of what I want to talk about. right now. And now the big one is, hey, did you know that something happened on Friday, July 19th, that impacted the entire world? Did you hear about that? So, like many of us, I was impacted by the CrowdStrike outage. I received a call Friday to jump on, obviously, incident management bridges. If you're working in a smaller shop, you probably got paged out right away and had to figure out what the hell was going on. In larger organizations, we have a formal incident management process. There are page outs from the incident management team. They set up bridges. Friday, I think there were all 10 bridges were active, which was a first at my tenure here at the company. I think a first since the formal development of the incident management process. And it was interesting, to say the least. First and foremost, there were a number of folks that couldn't even get on because their systems were impacted. I wasn't impacted because I actually shut down my computer the night before. I tend to have a habit of doing that every once in a while, just shut down my computer. So I did not get the update that impacted the Windows machines. And what I wanted to talk about is I want to go through this preliminary incident management review, because I think it's important as technologists to really understand what's going on. And I also want to focus on how you can leverage this as an opportunity for your career development. I have to say, over the course of my career, I've been through a number of pretty big incidents, whether it was caused by natural disaster, Hurricane Sandy, whether it was caused by terrorism, 9/11, or whether it was caused by my own idiocy, deleting storage pools on an EMC server that was hosting Exchange, and not realizing that I had moved archive databases to those pools. And when I did select all, instead of going through each pool and deleting the ones I needed to delete, I impacted the Exchange environment for the company I was working for at the time. So I think it's key to go through this. And the reason why I say that is because as you go through each iteration of incidents, whether it's the fault of a vendor, whether the fault of natural disaster or terrorism, at some point you're going to need to be accountable for what happened. You're going to need to be able to explain what happened. And reading through these incident reviews will help you, to be able to better explain what's going on. At the end of the day, if it's something you did, you need to be accountable for that. You need to own up to it. If you get fired, you get fired. But the key thing here is, if you screwed up and you're accountable for it, make sure you either know how to remedy it and have already remediated it, I should say, or come up with a plan to remediate it. So when I pulled the storage stuff from the Exchange, from the EMC box and killed the Exchange, I knew right away, because I had my Outlook client open and it started hanging and it was failing. I'm like, holy shit. And unfortunately, there was the storage engineer that I was working with, who was a good friend of mine, was next to me, and I told him, I was like, hey, by the way, this happened. Can you call folks while I get this recovered? So, yeah, and then afterwards, we had to explain what happened. And then you'll get questions like, hey, how do you prevent this from going on? And I'll go through this. So one of the things that I wanted to go through is, so this incident review, some of you may call them postmortems. I've always called them postmortems, right? But one of the things I wanted to focus on, right? So what happened? So there was an update that was pushed out. Now remember, CrowdStrike is a tool to help companies prevent malicious activity within their environment. So it's deployed across the technology estate, from Mac to Linux to Windows and assets. And so what happened was they did an update, they pushed it out, and the issue was the rapid response content configuration resulted in Windows systems crashing. Why Windows systems? Well, because CrowdStrike has access to the underlying kernel of the Windows operating system. So, and this is key, right? So the systems in scope were Windows hosts running this version of sensor, Falcon sensor, 711, and we're actually on. That's key. Those systems that were on between 4:09 UTC on Friday and 5:27. So it was about an hour and 18 minutes, right? That just all this happened. So UTC, right, universal time. So midnight to about 1:30 Eastern. And you can kind of determine the time zone for you. And here's key: Mac and Linux hosts were not impacted. The defect was reverted at 5:27. So if your system wasn't on, you didn't get the update, you weren't impacted. Now, why was this such a big deal? Well, a lot of people don't turn off their machines. And let's start with desktops. I think most of us now are either remote or you have an open floor plan in your building. So you don't have an office anymore. You don't have a designated desk, let's say. So you either work from home, like I do, or you kind of lug your laptop back and forth. So those people probably weren't impacted because you shut your machine down and you're not up at that time. Maybe you are, maybe you're not, whatever. Then there are the other group of people that actually have their laptops or desktops or whatever up all the time, in sleep mode, whatever. I don't know. The rollout got pushed. Boom, they got impacted. Then your other class of people that work on VDIs only, contractors, consultants, whatever. I was part of that. And you don't shut your VDI down. Why would you? It's just kind of spinning up. Maybe your organization doesn't monitor for running VDIs and they don't bring them down or put them to sleep, right? I don't know. So those all got impacted. And then obviously your server environments, your Windows server environments, you never shut those down. Why would you? Because they're actually running applications. So those are kind of the scenarios that you have to really play out in your head. And some people were kind of scratching their head, and we haven't had our post-incident review yet. I think it's later today. And some folks were impacted and some folks weren't. What really opened my eyes, and I was talking to a friend of mine the other night over dinner. I was like, remember, I've been in this game, almost 30 years now at this point. I didn't realize how many critical systems were actually running on Windows. From banks to airlines and things like that. And what I learned over the course of this time, that it wasn't so much the critical systems in terms of the airlines to kind of function. It was tracking where their pilots were, right? In terms of the schedule, right? Because pilots have certain restrictions, right? They can't fly for more than X a number of hours consecutively and things like that. Well, that's what really killed them, right? I think Delta's still going through that as of today, the 25th of July, 2024. Right. So those are the things that are like, wow, like you really don't realize that there are certain things that are running on Windows that have a significant impact to the global economy, the global ecosystem of how things run, from airlines to banks to everything in between. I'm like, damn, Microsoft really did a really good job of expanding their reach. Because when I started, it was all Unix, Solaris, AS400, big mainframes, right? The other one escaped me. We had it running at this company for a while, and I think we just shut it down. But anyway, that's the world I grew up in, right? And grew up in terms of professionally. And Windows was always kind of like, it's the desktop, we have to run Exchange and SQL and things like that. But yeah, SQL servers run on Windows. And it was something that kind of was like, wow, it really opened my eyes. Like, holy shit, Microsoft has done a really good job. So the rapid response portion of the sensor was impacted. There was an undetected error. Okay. Right. And if you go through this, you can kind of talks about what the rapid response feature does and things like that. But based on their testing, right? Because again, when you're doing deployments, and we've learned this in the patch management world, that you don't deploy everything at once, right? You have your staging environment, or you have your pilot group. I'm part of that pilot group, so I get updates every freaking week, it seems like. So you're part of a pilot group. Then you roll it out to non-prod, right? A small group, and you have kind of like buckets, right? Patch group 1, patch group 2, patch group 25, right? You always touch the VIPs later, the executive team. You touch them last. You don't touch them first. You touch them last. Because God knows you don't want to hear a CEO coming and yelling at you. Their fucking machine is down because it's patched. So we learned this in the patch management world a long time ago. But with security tools, it's a lot different. And this is what folks don't understand. The security world is constantly evolving and trying to stay one step ahead of these malicious actors. So they don't have the luxury of certifying things at that level. I mean, if you go through it, there are ways that they deal with testing and deployment, right? And they probably did have a good process, but what we're not reading through in terms of reading between the lines is how quickly they were able to validate that, right? And I'm hearing that they did the testing, but then Microsoft changed something post-testing that caused the unknown error, right? So they tested it in March, right? You'll see that it did a stress test, and then they deployed the templates between April 8th and April 24th, right? That's a big gap in between April, May, June, July Windows patches. 4 months of Windows patches since they did their stress test. And that says a lot in terms of, again, having the ability to access the kernel on the Windows level. And the reason they were able to do that is because obviously they want to be able to, because Microsoft's the most targeted operating system in the world because of their known vulnerabilities throughout the inception of Windows. And it's just they just couldn't keep up, right? So there's the bug in the content validator. One of the two template instances passed the validation despite containing the problematic data, right? Based on testing performed before the initial deployment on March, right? When received by the sensor, right? Problematic channel file 291 resulted in out-of-bound memory reading trigger an exception. And that's where you got the blue screen of death. And then that's where everybody's problems start. And then if you go read this, so I think it's important that you all read this. It's important to understand how they kind of go through this. And this is the preliminary discussion around this. But one of the things that, and again, if you just go to Crowdstrike blog, just search for Crowdstrike PIR in your search engine of choice, and it'll come up. But one thing I wanted to focus on, right, after going through this PIR is I found a lot of success in navigating the chaos during these incidents, I should say. This is going to be an opportunity for you to be visible in these high severity incidents. I think one of the key things that you have to recognize that these are opportunities for you. As much as it sucks, these are opportunities for you to be visible and to demonstrate your value within an organization. Plain and simple. I'll give you a few use cases. This specific incident made one of my, I'm not going to say junior, kind of mid-level system engineers, or cloud engineers, I should say. He's actually a cloud ops guy. That's his official title, but he's really an engineer. He rose to the top and essentially was facilitating the communication between the incident management process and the cloud ops team, because his boss was out. I was still sleeping because I didn't get the page out until I think an hour after he joined. And my boss was dealing with something else. So he took it upon himself. He was like, hey, I'm gonna while leadership is kind of dragging their ass, I'm gonna kind of manage everything. So by the time I joined, he was kind of like, boom, dealing with incident management, jumping back and forth between different breaches. So when I joined, I said, hey, dude, just focus on the ops guys. I'll take care of this. And the reason being is I need him to focus and guide the rest of the ops team properly, and I'll funnel in the impacted servers and I'll prioritize them for him, right? Because I didn't need him to figure out, okay, what's more important. Because as great as he is technically, navigating the incident management process and dealing with those folks is a whole different skill set, right? Not that I didn't want him to learn it. This was so high that I needed him to focus on organizing and managing the ops team, which, by the way, he did extremely well. Even when he did come back on a call to manage the incident, update the incident management team, he did it effectively. And he's going to get kudos for that. He's probably going to get promoted. And I'm going to try to get him promoted because of this, right? So at the tail end of that, I told his boss, I was like, hey, by the way, he rocked it. He did a great job. There is he's in India, so there's a recognition program in India. Let's get him recognized so he can get little incentives, right? I think some of it's monetary, depending on kind of the level that they all agree upon. So I told him, I told my boss, and then I told my boss's boss. I said, hey, by the way, this guy was a standout, and we need to make sure that we give him kudos, and we figure out what to do for him. Right. And that's my job, right? As a one of the leaders within the organization, is to be able to recognize people that actually do a good job. Now, I understand that some organizations are not like that. I've been in organizations like that, so I get that, right? So, but again, having gone through this career progression and being able to be in a position where I can recognize and give people props when they actually do really good things is what I've learned over the course of my journey to where I'm at now. Obviously, I'm still in my journey, but it's one of those things that you can be bitter, you can be whatever you want over the course of your career, but if you get an opportunity to be in this role, focus on your people. That's what I tend to do, because people are the one that actually drive an organization, right? And even for outsourced people, right? Because most of our cloud ops team is outsourced. I think we have like 2 cloud ops guys internally, but the rest are all outsourced. Even for our outsourced people, some of those folks, they rose to the top too, because, my guy couldn't stay up 24/7, right? So they rotate shifts, and there are some certain folks within the cloud ops team that, I was, as much as I would love to have handoffs, I'm still checking my team's channels and be, all right, here's the update, blah, blah, blah. So while I'm not 24/7 hands-on, I'm still 24/7 managing the incident, providing updates, timely updates to my leadership team and things like that. So even in the vendor team, vendor ops process, I had a conversation with their leadership on Monday, and I'm talking about the top guys, not their direct line managers. And I said, hey, by the way, these are the folks that really excelled during this process, right? They stepped up to the plate, and boom, so whatever kudos you can give them, go ahead and do it. And so, and they're appreciative of that, right? So I think, if you're working with vendors and things like that, again, vendor management, building those relationships, is one of the things that, again, as part of your skill set, you should start learning how to do, depending on where you are in your journey. I think regardless of where you are in your journey, if you haven't built that ability to build those relationships, it's key. So during this CrowdStrike incident, we had one person on our team rise to the top, and we're going to give kudos. How I got to where I am, even in this organization, I've been known to really rise to the occasion during certain outages and incidents. A key one that actually made me more visible to the new CIO at the time. We had a storage outage. We were on a call at the time I was working on the Active Directory side of the house. At the time we were getting we were trying to recover domain controllers, right? And we were all on a bridge. I think it was 6:00 at night, and I had just gotten back from I think a basketball game for my daughter, so I was actually in the car talking with the domain admin team, the hands-on keyboard folks, right? And just talking them through the things. And she jumps in. She's like, why can't we just get Microsoft on a call to do this? And I was like, oh, I didn't realize you're on a call. And I said, hey, by the way, we don't need them at this point, right? We know what we need to do. It's just a matter of, navigating through the process. And the process takes a little bit of time because it's not something that you want to do hastily, because if you do it hastily, you're going to impact the entire Active Directory domain infrastructure. And she's like, oh, okay, thank you. And it's kind of like, hey, we got this, shut up, right? It's kind of one of those things. Because in her mind, she was like, oh, we were delaying the recovery of Active Directory because we didn't know what we were doing. That's how she translated it. But I had to correct her. And again, I did it in a way where, it didn't impact her ego. It was just informing her, this is the process, right? Active Directory is not something that you just hastily bring up, because then you have a bigger challenge. You'll have a wider impact to the rest of the Active Directory domain environment that's not impacted, or that's not down, that's not, that you don't need to recover. So that's why we did it. And again, effective communication. I've done a couple of episodes around effective communication, but just learn how to do that. And so that made me visible in the course of her tenure here, right? She knew who I was, and that's going to be key. Excuse me while I fix my eye. And there are other scenarios like that I was able to rise to the occasion. Folks knew me based on that, how I handled myself. You just can't be a nut, right? Some people that are really, really talented and a lot smarter than I am, they just, for whatever reason, can't deal with that, can't handle that. And that's fine. Even if you have to be the interpreter for, the older, wizened, gray-beard folks in the background, even if you have to be their voice, right? And a lot of those guys like that, right? They don't want to be front and center with the incident folks. Even if you can help translate between what they're saying and what they need, the incident people need to hear, that's your opportunity to kind of rise to the top. So I think one of those things that you'll understand, and again, not every organization I understand does this, but take that opportunity to learn, right? Everything should be a learning milestone for you, right? Every incident like this, it's always something to learn upon and add to your toolbox over the course of time. If your organization doesn't deal like that or doesn't work like that, then that means it's your time to start putting a plan in place to get out of that organization. Now, I know today's job market in 2024 is harder than it was 4 years ago, but you still have to put a plan in place to get out, because you're going to be miserable. You're never going to get ahead, and you're going to. There's still opportunities out there. It's just going to take a lot harder because you're up against a lot more applicants at that point. But start doing it. You also need to reconsider the fact that maybe we don't work the way we used to, right? Back in 2020, 2024. Maybe start doing some side gigs. If you're in the cybersecurity space, do capture flags, learn certain things, network, start open source projects. I talked about that a few seasons ago, right? And how to grow your skills. There are plenty of opportunity to join open source projects to get your name out there. For those of you that work remotely, you can kind of double dip, right? You're doing your job here. You can kind of do some training on the side. I did Hack the Box, not Hack the Box. Shoot, the one that the war games. I forgot what it was called. I did do Hack the Box, but it was way over my head. Whatever the Capture the Flag one was, the War Games one, Over the Wire. I started that a long time ago, and I kind of put it off because, a lot of things happened. But after I do my Google stuff, I'm going to go back to that because I think it's still key to be able to do that. If you're in meetings, instead of playing video games like I do, like Fortnite, do something else, right? If you don't have to actively participate in a meeting, right? Do something else. I always keep closed captioning on, right? So I can scroll back up. Oh, what did I miss? Teams also offers transcription. If you don't have transcription enabled, turn on closed captioning, because at least in Teams, you can scroll back up. Not a lot, but you can still scroll back up if you miss something as they said your name. So that's one way to kind of manage both. So sysadmin folks, I know I talk about cloud a lot, but there is a path for you to transition into cloud. You just have to find the right opportunity, start learning cloud and doing things. So I know I kind of went off into a tangent. A lot of this is really focused on this CrowdStrike, what happened, how you can take advantage of this incident review, and learn from it, how you can take advantage from this and potentially provide insight and inputs, and how you can change the process within your own organization, right? This is how you get visible, right? This is how you kind of learn things. And if you're learning that your boss doesn't kind of take things up, if there's a forum that you have the opportunity to kind of say, hey, by the way, I have this idea, blah, blah, and I talked to blah, blah about it, right? Is there an opportunity here? We have, and again, I work at a large organization. We have Ask Management Anything, so AMAs, every month for management. So we kind of just pitch it up there. If you don't have that in your organization, if you're a smaller shop, it's a little bit more intimate. If you only talk to your boss, figure out how you can get outside of that circle and talk to their bosses. Again, my journey was a little bit different, right? Because I started at the help desk, and then I pivoted into kind of the admin stuff, and then sys engineering, network sys engineering. So I was kind of always in front of different folks, from CEOs to sales leads, directors, and things like that. So I learned how to kind of communicate with those folks. If you're early in your journey, try to figure out how do you do that now. Right? And dude, I respond to things on Reddit and people are like, I need more info. Like, people still want their hands held. I don't do that. I provide my insights and my experiences, and then you take from it what I give you. Like, if you have specific questions on, well, how'd you do this? Maybe I'll dig deeper into that. Or is this the right way? I'll dig deeper into that. But if somebody wants like a specific roadmap for themselves, I can't do that. I don't know you. I don't know you. I'm just giving you my experiences, and you kind of take from it and create your own experience, right? Create your own journey. Right? You should be learning from every single person around you. And if this helps you, great, but I'm not going to give you a roadmap. Bro, like, I don't even know you. Like, how can I give you? You give me 2 lines of like, oh, I passed this exam, I'm working on this exam, give me a roadmap. I don't know you. And even if I did know you, I wouldn't give you a roadmap. I'd just say, hey, try this, this, and this, because everybody's journey is different. Right? This is the reason why I started this 10 years ago. Oh, yeah, 9 years ago, 2015. I started this just as a brain dump for people to take and learn and figure out how to navigate certain things. I'm not always right. I'll tell you that right now. I'm not always right. But don't be that person who's like, oh, on my hand. No, don't be that. We have too many people like that. And a lot of people take advantage of that, right? They take advantage of people like me and say, oh, I'll help you. And then they'll just kind of stab them in the back. So I'm just doing a brain dump with this show, and you take from it what you can and try to pivot your own career. So I think if you were impacted by the CrowdStrike incident, it's a big learning opportunity for you. If you're early in your career, if you're late in your career, you want to pivot, really something you should really look at, read through the incident review that they provided, understand how they presented it and how they explained it, right? There's the one I showed you was a more technical one. There's a less technical one out there. Look for that. And then understand how you can leverage that information to pivot for future incidents within your own organization, right? You can be the incident review person, right? Just kind of be like, hey, this is what happened, right? And work with people. If you're less technical and don't want to be as technical as some folks, right? Be that translator between the technical folks and non-technical folks. There are a lot of opportunities out there for you, and sometimes people just focus on just one thing, right? So try to break out of that and, figure out your own path, figure out your own journey. What does it say right there? You got this. You got this. It's not that difficult. You got this. Yeah, job market sucks, but a lot of it's just luck. So if you can get lucky and find a new role in this job market, go for it. But take this as a learning experience, an opportunity, right? Everything should be an opportunity for you. Don't forget that. Everything should be an opportunity for you. That's my time. I'm Chuck, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much.